She made millions laugh on Gimme a Break. But how did Nell Carter end up broke, alone, and gone too soon? At the time of her death in 2003, Nell Carter's net worth was estimated at $2 million, a far cry from what many expected for a household name who once made $50,000 a week. And now, 2 decades later, what's left behind is just as haunting as her legacy. In this video, we'll take you inside the abandoned remains of Nell Carter's once luxurious Beverly Hills home, uncover the financial rise and fall of a star who broke barriers, and piece together the tragic final years that Hollywood chose to forget. How does a legend end up so forgotten? Let's find out. Nell Ruth Hardy was born on September 13, 1948, in Birmingham, Alabama, the 5th of 9 children born to Edna Mae and Horace Hardy. But from the very beginning, life didn't go easy on her. When Nell was just 2 years old, tragedy struck. Her father took her out to play one day, but while outside, he accidentally stepped on a live power line. The current was instant and unforgiving. Horace died right in front of his young daughter. Nell may have been too young to remember the moment itself, but the shadow of that loss followed her. And if it didn't impact her directly, it certainly shaped her mother. Left to raise 9 children alone, Edna Mae hardened. According to those who knew the family, she became strict, bitter, and completely no-nonsense, especially when it came to 2 things: her children and the church. Sundays weren't optional in the Hardy household. You would be in church and not just sitting in the pews either. You were expected to participate. For Nell, that meant joining the choir. She didn't mind. In fact, she loved it. Nell had a gift, and soon, so did everyone else. Her voice stood out so much that she began singing for a local gospel radio station, becoming something of a hometown star before she was even grown. By her late teens, Nell was ready for more. Around 14, she started performing at local hangouts around Birmingham. At 15, she joined a traveling troupe called the Renaissance Ensemble. But it said her mother, devout and old-fashioned, had no idea what Nell was really up to. Some claim Nell was performing in gay bars, something that would have horrified her church-going, judgment-heavy mother. But Nell didn't stop. She was chasing the stage, and nothing else mattered. She threw herself into every performance. By this time, she had made up her mind. She wasn't just going to sing, she was going to be a performer, an actress, an entertainer. Then came the night of July 5th, 1965. Nell had just finished a performance with her ensemble, likely in a cafe or local venue. As usual, she stole the show. Afterward, she accepted a ride home from a man she had known for years, possibly most of her life. The two laughed and joked as they drove, until, in the middle of a laugh, Nell suddenly felt something cold press under her chin. A gun. The man threatened to kill her. Then he ordered her to undress. Terrified, Nell complied. He assaulted her. She was just a teen girl. Whether Nell told her family right away is unclear. But eventually, she couldn't hide it. Her body began to change. She was pregnant. A child, unwed, and now carrying the baby of her attacker. The judgment came fast and hard. Whispers, gossip, sideways glances, and worst of all, her own mother. Gossip says Edna Mae labeled Nell a fast-tail heifer and never let her forget it. When Nell gave birth to a baby girl she named Tracy, things didn't get easier. She struggled with motherhood. She was overwhelmed. Fortunately, her older sister Willie stepped in and offered to raise the child. Nell agreed, but instead of staying put, getting a job, or trying to settle down, Nell doubled down on her dreams. She stayed with the Renaissance Ensemble, and around 18 or 19, she traveled with them to New York City. That trip changed everything. The city was electric. It was bold, fast-paced, and filled with people chasing something bigger. Nell knew instantly she was never going back. She was done being a small-town girl. She was ready to be a star. She also knew the name Nell Hardy wasn't going to take her there. So she rebranded. She became Nell Carter. Now on her own, she started booking small solo gigs, singing in coffee shops, performing in cafes. And with a voice like hers, it didn't take long for people to take notice. One opportunity led to another. People were calling, reaching out. One person even told her, "I can get you a Broadway audition." Nell went for it. She started auditioning constantly. And in 1971, her persistence paid off. She landed her first role on Broadway, a rock opera called Soon. She was ecstatic. She gave the show everything she had. But the production fizzled, closing after just 3 performances. Still, Nell wasn't the type to quit. She kept showing up to auditions, going to industry events, and staying connected. She had stepped into the arena, and she had no plans of leaving. By 1974, Nell Carter's persistence was finally paying off. That year, she landed a role alongside Hollywood royalty, Bette Davis, in a stage production called Miss Moffat. Nell was electric on stage. Audiences whispered, praised, and applauded her performance. But despite having 2 powerhouse talents, the play struggled. Attendance was low, and the show never made it to Broadway. Even with Bette Davis, it flopped. Still, Nell didn't let it shake her. If nothing else, she had her sharp attitude, undeniable charm, and a work ethic no one could deny. That same year, she added another major credit to her resume. Nell was named musical director of the Westbeth Playwrights Feminist Collective's production of What Time of Night It Is. It wasn't just a creative win, it gave her credibility. Soon, auditions got easier. Her name started to carry weight, especially within New York's theater circles. Nell was climbing the ladder, slowly but surely. And while she appreciated the steady rise, she still wanted something bigger, something that would truly showcase her voice, her roots, and her magic. Then came the opportunity of a lifetime. In 1978, a new stage production emerged, Ain't Misbehavin'. Unlike anything she had done before, the show celebrated Black music, Black history, and Black excellence. It was Nell's moment. She didn't just star in it, she was the show. Every night she brought the house down. Audiences came to see her. Critics couldn't stop talking. And when the 1978 Tony Awards rolled around, they didn't hesitate. Nell Carter took home the Tony Award like it was made just for her. From that moment on, she wasn't just a performer. She was a star. With newfound fame came TV offers. And Nell? She embraced them all. But here's where things got a little messy. Despite declaring to every Broadway executive and playwright how much the stage meant to her, how she'd never turn her back on the theater, Nell did exactly that. In 1979, she was cast as Effie White in the early development of Dreamgirls. But after only 2 rehearsals, her agent sent a letter. Nell had dropped out. The reason? It conflicted with her new television work on the soap Ryan's Hope. Producers were stunned. Phones rang non-stop. "Nell, you said Broadway was your heart. We need you. Please come back." But Nell? She was at home, sipping wine, watching that phone ring, and not answering. She had her eyes on something bigger. She was focused on just how far her star could rise. And it did. Alongside Ryan's Hope, Nell landed a role in the film Hair in 1979. 2 years later, she joined the cast of The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo. Television had officially welcomed her with open arms. Still, her legacy from Ain't Misbehavin' never faded. When producers created a televised version of the show, they didn't hesitate to bring her back. And once again, she stole the spotlight, this time earning an Emmy Award. By 1980, when producers began casting for a new sitcom called Gimme a Break, there was really only one choice: a powerhouse performer, a trailblazing Black woman, a voice that could sing, act, and command attention with just one look. That was Nell Carter. She booked the lead role. Nell Carter became Nell Harper, and little Nell Ruth Hardy from Birmingham, Alabama, could finally breathe. She had made it. America, and even the world, was now tuning in weekly to watch the phenomenon known as Nell Carter. But success came with a price, and soon the whispers began. One story goes all the way back to Birmingham. It's said Nell had been close with some, or possibly all, of the 4 little girls who died in the tragic 1963 church bombing. She used to play with them. When they were killed, the loss devastated her. Another rumor goes deeper. When Nell was rising as a gospel singer in Birmingham, beloved for her church solos and local radio performances, she made a bold pivot, switching to secular music. But in her deeply religious community, that didn't sit well. People turned on her. Her mother was reportedly furious. And according to some, local pastors even preached sermons against her. They claimed she was doing the devil's work, that her fame was proof of sin. And some folks, well, they believe those pastors may have been right. Because when Nell got to New York, temptation was everywhere. She started attending elite industry parties, events she never could have imagined back in Alabama. The more she was praised, the more exclusive the invitations became. And the deeper she got into that world, the darker it became. People whispered that Nell Carter had fallen into vices, drugs, drinking, reckless behavior. Fame opened the doors. But what came through them would nearly destroy her. The night Nell Carter won her Tony Award should have been nothing short of magical. She was one of the biggest names in the room, glowing with success, surrounded by power players, and expected to be the life of the party. The space was filled with big names, industry elites, and no outsiders. Just flashing lights, flowing champagne, and pure celebration. But soon, Nell realized the joy in the room wasn't just from the win or the champagne. Something else was floating through the air that night. When someone approached her with an offer to do a bump, Nell might have hesitated, but she also might have felt the pressure. After all, these were the same people who voted for her Tony, the ones who could open even bigger doors. Who wants to be the one to say no in front of that kind of power? Who wants to be the buzzkill in a room full of people who think they're invincible? So Nell leaned in and took the bump. And that's where it began. According to multiple accounts, Nell Carter loved that first high. From then on, gossip claims she fell hard into addiction. She became known for wandering around smiling wide-eyed, always chasing the next hit. In the beginning, she seemed to manage it, but over time, things spiraled badly. By the time she landed her lead role on Gimme a Break, her addiction was allegedly out of control. Some days, she wouldn't show up to set for hours, and when she finally did, anyone who dared to mention her lateness was met with attitude. She didn't hide who she thought she was. "This show wouldn't be nothing without me," she reportedly snapped. And in many ways, she wasn't wrong. But as her success grew, so did her instability. Not just with drugs, but with food. Nell could eat like there was no tomorrow, then spiral into sadness and frustration over her weight gain. Her relationship with food became a cycle of indulgence and regret. And when it came to food, you didn't want to mess with Nell. One wild rumor came from someone who claimed they had worked with her on the set of Hair. They said they were asked to fetch Nell's lunch. Seemed simple enough. But when they came back and handed her the food, only to turn around and walk off, they got a flying kick to the back. Nell had come out of nowhere with a roundhouse kick. Furious that her order was wrong, she cussed them out right there on set. Her behavior, fueled by addiction and volatility, didn't stop there. On the set of Gimme a Break, there was one incident that crew members never forgot. One day, Nell didn't show up. Again. Most assumed she was hungover or running late. But as the hours passed with no word, casting director Joel Thurm grew concerned. He sent someone to check on her. They had to break into her house. Inside, Nell was found unresponsive on the floor, completely naked, wearing nothing but a white mink coat. It was later revealed that Nell had been spending up to $1,000 to $2,000 a day on cocaine. Per day. Not per week, not per month. Per day. And that didn't even include the vast amounts of alcohol she was consuming. Her lifestyle was dangerous and unsustainable. Yet, in 1982, just as Gimme a Break was starting to climb the TV ratings, Nell made a surprising move. She got married. Her new husband was George Krenicki, or Kernicki, depending on the source, a mathematician and lumber executive. Their wedding was the talk of the town, but not for traditional reasons. Gossip called it a freak show at the time. The guest list included drag queens, bisexuals, and cross-dressers, which, for the early 80s, was scandalous in many circles. And Nell herself? She was throwing back champagne, scarfing down caviar, partying hard. So hard, in fact, that she and George didn't even consummate their wedding night. Nell spent it in the bathroom, hunched over the toilet, throwing up. After the wedding, Nell reportedly grew anxious about keeping her husband happy. She even converted to Judaism for him. But the marriage never truly settled. George always seemed to be overseas, traveling for work or escaping something. And Nell? She was mostly alone. By 1983 or 1984, something truly dark was creeping in. Her career was thriving, but her personal life was crumbling. The drugs, the food, the isolation, the loneliness, the pressure of fame. It all began closing in. And then, something really bad happened. At some point in the mid-1980s, Nell Carter found herself alone, either in a hotel room or back home. The details are fuzzy, but the emotional weight was real. She sat there, surrounded by the quiet and her drugs, when everything she had been avoiding came crashing down. The fame, the pressure, the bad decisions, it all hit at once. She felt tired, not just physically, but soul-deep exhaustion. She was tired of the cocaine, the drinking, the cycles of overeating and crash dieting. She was tired of trying to hold it together for her husband, George, who always seemed to be somewhere else. Tired of putting on a brave face while silently unraveling. And then came the questions, the doubts. Why was she still struggling? Why couldn't she stop? Had converting to Judaism to please George been a mistake? She even began to question her faith. God, she reportedly asked, have I upset you? Are you abandoning me? That night, overwhelmed and spiraling, Nell attempted to take her own life. But that dark chapter is only one piece of a complicated puzzle. Another layer to Nell's story involves her alleged temper and reputation on set. While many described her as warm and funny, others painted a very different picture. According to gossip, Broadway legend Patti LuPone once worked with Nell and was reportedly terrified of her. People said Nell could go from sweet to explosive in a heartbeat, and that no one dared cross her. One particularly unsettling rumor claims Patti even witnessed Nell threatening someone with a knife. And Rosie O'Donnell, who joined Gimme a Break late in the series, allegedly felt Nell's sharp tongue often. While Nell treated her kindly in public, insiders say she could be nice nasty behind the scenes, sarcastically mocking Rosie for not knowing something, then brushing it off with a condescending smile. The rumors didn't stop there. Nell supposedly butted heads with her co-star Dolph Sweet, who played the beloved Chief. He allegedly told Nell that she was playing a maid and should act more respectful toward him, remarks that ignited a firestorm. Nell reportedly lashed out, insisting she wasn't anyone's servant, and she wouldn't tone herself down to soothe anyone's ego. Even guest stars weren't immune. When the Pointer Sisters came on set for an episode titled The Return of the Doo-Wop Girls, things quickly fell apart. Nell had reportedly been on a bender and couldn't stay awake. During rehearsal, she kept nodding off. After repeated failed attempts to wake her, The crew gave up and left her sleeping on the couch. When she woke up, alone and humiliated, she rushed to apologize, only to be told, "We tried. You just wouldn't wake up." Nell's relationship with the younger cast also raised eyebrows. Early on, she doted on Joey Lawrence like a surrogate mother, spoiling him with gifts and affection. But as Joey's role on the show grew, so did Nell's jealousy. Insiders say she started resenting his screen time, reportedly muttering things like, "Why's this little boy getting all the lines? Who's the star here?" There may have been another explanation for her behavior. It was later revealed that Nell had diabetes, something she kept quiet about for a long time. People close to her began to wonder if some of her outbursts were triggered by blood sugar crashes, when her mood would swing from calm to volcanic in seconds. By now, the drug use had spiraled again. Even after that earlier suicide attempt, Nell couldn't stay clean. One night after attending a Liza Minnelli concert, Nell tried to take her life a second time. Whether Liza found her or simply heard what happened, the singer reportedly stepped in and got Nell admitted to a high-profile rehab facility. And this rehab center didn't care about fame. "You're Nell Carter? Great. Now go scrub the toilets." It was no frills, tough love recovery. To everyone's surprise, Nell responded. She worked hard, detoxed, and by the time she left, she had reportedly lost 91 pounds and was clean. This was in 1986. When she returned to the Gimme a Break set, producers were thrilled. They wanted to celebrate the new Nell, sober, slim, and ready for a fresh chapter. But it didn't last. The weight returned quickly, and with it, old habits. It's unclear if she relapsed on drugs during this period, but emotionally she was still struggling. At one point, she even went on a TV show to announce she was dieting again. But gossip claims that shortly after filming, she was spotted at a pastry shop with a donut in hand. A fan allegedly shouted, "No, Nell, put it down!" Mortified, she dropped the treat and ran out of the store. Her health continued to deteriorate. The diabetes worsened. Her marriage to George fell apart. And although she longed for children, she suffered 3 heartbreaking miscarriages. Determined to be a mother, Nell eventually adopted 2 baby boys. But as soon as she became a mom, her marriage collapsed for good. She and George divorced in 1992. Not long after, Nell rushed into another marriage, this time to a man named Roger LaRocque. The two wed in a Vegas chapel around midnight, with Nell weighing over 300 pounds and still battling depression. The marriage lasted less than a year. By this point, Nell Carter was a woman still searching for stability, for health, for happiness, but continually haunted by her past and worn down by her demons. By 1987, Gimme a Break had officially come to an end. And though Nell Carter had once been a household name, making a staggering $50,000 a week during her prime, by the early 90s, the lights had dimmed. The roles weren't pouring in like they used to, and by 1993, Nell found herself in an uncomfortable place. No longer the star, no longer the priority, and struggling with the quiet. The weight of it all, the depression, the years of drug use, the emotional strain, began to take a toll on her physically. Nell suffered 2 brain aneurysms, and by 1995, she had to file for bankruptcy. It was a stunning fall for someone who once commanded the spotlight. Despite her earnings, it seemed the more money she made, the faster it slipped through her hands, especially during the height of her addiction. Then came 2002. Like millions of others, Nell watched Whitney Houston's infamous Diane Sawyer interview. But unlike most viewers, Nell didn't just gasp and move on. She panicked. "She gonna die! She gonna die!" Nell shouted around her house. The fear was so real, so intense, that she immediately tried to intervene. She called Whitney's publicist, her label, even her family, leaving voicemails begging them to get Whitney into rehab. But no one ever called her back. By this time, Nell's heart had softened. After adopting 2 boys in the early 90s, She seemed determined to fill her life with love, especially the kind she could pour into children. She tried to adopt again. Once she brought home a baby girl named Mary, instantly falling in love and showing her off proudly. But when Mary's birth parents demanded money Nell didn't have, the baby was taken away. Still, Nell didn't give up. Desperate to become a mother again, she let a pregnant woman she barely knew move into her home. The woman lived off Nell's generosity, ate her food, used her supplies, and then walked away, belly and all, refusing to give up the child. From the outside, people questioned why a financially struggling woman would try to raise more children. What they didn't realize was, Nell was no longer alone. Gossip swirled about a relationship between Nell and a woman named Ann Kaiser. And behind closed doors, it wasn't just a rumor. Ann was Nell's partner, romantic, supportive, grounding. Ann reminded Nell of her worth, of her talent. She told her, "You're still Nell Carter. You can make it back." Together, they were planning a life, a family, and a future. And for a while, it worked. Nell lost weight. She gained control over her diabetes. And even though she had to file bankruptcy again in 2002, this time it didn't break her. She was determined to rebuild. In 2001, she landed 2 guest spots on Ally McBeal, and soon after, she was cast in a touring production of Raisin based on A Raisin in the Sun. A film project called Swing was on the horizon. Her comeback had officially begun. On the morning of January 23, 2003, Nell went into her bathroom to get ready for the day, likely applying powder to her face, preparing for whatever was next. But then, silence. She didn't show up for her appointments. No one could reach her. Concerned, her son Joshua eventually entered the bathroom. And there, on the floor, he found his mother's lifeless body. Nell Carter was gone. She was just 54 years old. The official cause of death was heart disease, worsened by complications from diabetes. It was a tragic end to a life marked by talent, pain, resilience, and a constant search for joy. She had made millions laugh. But behind the laughter was a woman who had long been chasing something deeper: peace. At the time of her death in 2003, Nell Carter's net worth was estimated to be around $2 million, a fraction of what she had once earned during the peak of her career on Gimme a Break, where she reportedly made $50,000 a week. Despite her fame and success in the 1980s, years of financial mismanagement, costly health struggles, addiction battles, and 2 bankruptcies, filed in 1995 and again in 2002, had significantly drained her finances. In her final years, Nell lived in a modest ranch-style home in Beverly Hills, far from the glitz of Rodeo Drive. The house was not the kind of palatial estate you'd expect from a former sitcom star, but it reflected a different chapter in Nell's life, one more grounded, private, and introspective. The property sat quietly on a tree-lined street, with a warm beige exterior and a simple arched doorway. Inside, the layout was open and inviting, with hardwood floors, cozy built-in bookshelves, and a kitchen that had clearly been used with love, perhaps for baking treats for her adopted sons. There were 3 bedrooms, each painted in calming pastels, and the master bathroom was where Nell was tragically found by her son Joshua. The backyard was intimate, lined with hedges, and featured a small patio with faded outdoor furniture, not glamorous, but lived in. Today, the house still stands. It has since been updated and sold, but neighbors occasionally recall seeing Nell outside, tending to the small rose garden she once planted herself. The home has become something of a quiet landmark, not because it was lavish, but because it held the final chapters of a woman who once lit up American television. It's a bittersweet reminder that while fame fades, the places people live, especially in their last years, carry the weight of their stories. And in Nell Carter's case, her final home reflected not just her fall from stardom, but her enduring desire for peace, stability, and love. That's a wrap for this video. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed it and want to hear more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when the next video drops. See you next time.